I'm Larry Hindle. I'm the owner of Evergreen here in the north end of Seekonk. This afternoon I'm going to talk about a couple of spring and summer blooming shrubs, some of my favorites, and hopefully they'll become yours, and about pruning them, some mid-season tips on pruning spireas. Spireas is a pretty wide range of plants. There's several new varieties. This one right here is called Double Play Pink. And there's a whole series of double play spireas. Red Doozy is one that's kind of a rose colored. Candy corn has yellow leaves with pink flowers. So there's numerous of them, and they're very versatile, and I think everyone should have one in their garden. It blooms in the month of June on new growth. So I always tell my customers, if you want to prune it for height or shape, do that in the very early spring, and you'll be sure to get flowers throughout the whole month of June. Once it's done blooming, the flowers tend to turn this kind of beige brown color, and once they do, it's a good idea, if you have the time and you want to encourage another flush of flower later in the season, to come in with your pruners. You can use your hand pruners and just come back a couple of inches and prune all of these flowers, the dead flowers, or the spent flowers I'll call them. They're not dead, but just the spent flowers off. Now you can do this by hand with pruners. If the shrub's this big, it's a lot easier. You can actually take some hand shears, and you can just come along and just tip the plant, taking off all these past bloom flowers, just like this. You don't have to get every one, but the more you get, the more flower you're going to get in mid to late August. And at the same time, you're reducing the overall height and the width of the plant. So most of these spireas, the newer varieties, get anywhere from 2.5 to 3 feet high and up to 4 feet around. They make ideal foundation plantings, or in a mixed border like this. They give you a pop of color in June, and then if you do like I just showed you, trim off the spent flowers. They'll bloom again in mid to late August, and you'll get another several weeks worth of flower. Let's move on, and we're going to talk about hydrangeas. So I'm standing between two new hybrid panicle hydrangeas. I'm going to spend a minute on talking about hydrangeas in general. Most of you are probably familiar with the mop heads, or the big leaf hydrangeas, those big blue flowers, pink flowers that bloom profusely down at Cape Cod, down in the water on the coast of Rhode Island, and out in Nantucket. They just grow like wildflower, and they bloom really well. Up here in Seekonk and further north, we have a tough time with those flowers, so I tend to use a lot of the panicle hydrangeas. So this variety here is called Little Quickfire. So the panicles are a whole different species. They're much hardier, their flower buds, and they also, like the spireas, bloom on new growth. So you can cut them back as low as you want in the spring, and once you've done that, they'll produce new growth in May and June and end up flowering from June, July, and August all summer long with flowers. This variety is called Little Quickfire, like I said, so it usually ends up at about 5 feet. Now that's about what this is today, but that's with a little bit of trimming. So in the early spring, we come in and we cut it back. You can see my cuts. If you look in here, you can see that it was cut probably about 18 inches below where it's blooming now. I probably cut it to about 3 feet, and I do that every spring so that it finishes at about 5 feet. And right now it's probably a good 4 feet across. Quickfire, it's called quick because it starts blooming early. Most of the panicle hydrangeas don't bloom until July. This guy started in mid to late June. And as the season progresses and we get into the shorter days and cooler nights of August, these flowers are going to start turning pink, and then they end up a nice rose color in September. I'm looking to see here. You can just see, you might just see a little bit of the pink starting to form. But if you came back in about a month or 6 weeks, it's going to be all pink and shades of rose, which is really attractive. So the panicles have become one of my favorites. They come in all shapes and sizes, and some start blooming early. Some have a big sponge-like flower, big cone sponge-like. This one has that kind of lacy look. Limelight was the first that came out 15, 20 years ago, and that was sort of the one that led the way of new panicles. That one gets 6 to 8 feet high. There's a little lime, which is right to my left here. So limelight can get 6 to 8 feet high with big white cloud-like flowers, big sponge flowers. This guy gets, like Little Quickfire, the little lime gets only about 5 feet with a little bit of trimming. The limelight and the little lime, they bloom in July, so they're just starting to form their flower buds. If you look close, you can see some here. They're always at the tip of the plant. These are all little buds just starting. So if you came back in a week or two, this one will be in full bloom. It has a little limey green flower when it starts, and it ends up pure white. And it also fades to kind of a mauve pink as the days get shorter and the nights get cooler. But the panicle hydrangeas are a winner for any garden for all season color and low maintenance. So I'm Larry Hindle, the owner of Evergreen Tree and Landscape here in the north end of Seekonk.